They say three things are certain in life: death, taxes, and more taxes. For an average Indian, taxes are a touchy subject. A mention of the T word can be annoying sometimes. After all, you pay so much money as tax to the government, but don't get the kind of services you deserve in return. Today, let's talk about one such tax: GST, the Goods and Services Tax. As the name suggests, it is levied on each item you buy. So from your daily vegetables, groceries, to electronic appliances, cars, any and everything you buy has GST attached to it. You have to pay GST on that commodity. The Modi government had introduced it to simplify India's tax structure. So all your separate taxes were gotten rid of and clubbed into one in the form of GST. Critics argued that the government ended up making GST more complicated for a common man rather than simplifying it. It seems like the government has now finally heard their critics. 8 years since GST was implemented, the Modi government has decided to go in for a major reform. They've decided to readjust the tax it charges you on items. The end result? Common use commodities will get cheaper and more savings for you at the end of the month. And to top it all, these reforms will kick in as the country gets ready for a festive season. The markets have given a thumbs up, the middle class is happy, and the internet is flooded with memes. Hello and welcome, I'm Shubham Chauhan. Let's get started. So India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced a simplified GST structure last night, GST 2.0 as it is being called. Remember, Prime Minister Modi had mentioned about these reforms as far as GST is concerned in his Independence Day speech from the Red Fort earlier this year. Yesterday, the Finance Minister presented the final plan. You see, until now, GST had a four-tier structure. So, goods and services were placed in 4 tax slabs: 5%, 12%, 18%, and 28%. This has now changed. Effectively, we are now down to just 2 slabs, 5 and 18%. So the GST on several items have been rejigged. Either they are in the 5% bracket or the 18% slab, or completely exempted from GST altogether. There's also a special 40%, a third slab in place, which is the 40% slab for a very few select items. They are called sin goods, which we'll come to in a minute. But first, let's look at the big headline, which is being celebrated as a bonanza by the Modi government. Nirmala Sitharaman made this announcement after a long meeting of the GST Council in New Delhi. The council comprises the Union Finance Minister and the Finance Ministers of all states and union territories. Nirmala Sitharaman said all states unanimously backed the change in tax slabs and said this reform in GST will directly benefit consumers by reducing their tax burden.
This reform is not just on rationalizing rates. It's also on structural reforms. It's also on ease of living, so that businesses can do their business of working together with the GST with a great ease. So we have corrected inverted duty structure problems. We've resolved classification related issues, and we've ensured that there will be stability and predictability about the GST. Rate rationalization, of course. We've reduced the slabs. There shall be only 2 slabs, and we are addressing also the issues of compensation cess.
So which items will get cheaper and when do the new tax slabs kick in? On the first bit, it's a long list, but we'll try and sum it up for you. Let's start with the daily essentials. Hair oil, toilet soaps, shampoos, toothbrushes, tableware and kitchenware will now have a 5% GST rate. This is down from 18% that used to be charged earlier. In food products, paneer and all types of Indian breads, including your parathas, are now exempted from GST. They were charged 5% GST earlier, now it's 0. Packaged food items such as namkeen, bhujia, sauces, pasta, cornflakes, butter and ghee will now try. Moving on to household appliances, air conditioners, your ACs, dishwashers and TVs will be taxed at 18% from the current 28%. In healthcare, 33 life-saving drugs and medicines which were earlier taxed at 12% GST will now be exempted altogether, 0. In insurance, and that really is the big one, no GST on all individual life and health insurance policies. Earlier, this was taxed in the 18% club. Now it will be 0. And you expect some insurance companies to make some noise about this change that has been made. Meanwhile, GST on spectacles and goggles have been slashed from 28% to just 5%. Footwear and textiles have seen their GST going down from 12% to 5%, which means your clothing will now get cheaper. Small cars and motorcycles below 350cc engine come down from 28 to 18% GST. Petrol cars under 1200cc engine, and diesel cars under 1500cc engine are also now going down to 18% GST. Then services of health clubs, salons, barbers, fitness centers, yoga, etc. will attract a GST rate of 5%. That is down from 18%. And so on and so forth. The list goes on and we'll keep that playing on the screen for you. Now, besides 5 and 18%, there's a third slab as well, and that is the 40% for the sin or luxury goods. It's sin because some of these goods are not considered to be healthy. So by taxing more, the aim is to discourage people from buying and consuming these goods. These include your tobacco, gutka, pan, masala, etc. Additionally, cold drinks like your Coca-Cola, Pepsi would now attract a GST of 40%. And this 40% GST club, there are also ultra luxury items like big cars, private jets, etc. Now, these new tax slabs will kick in from the 22nd of September. That is the first day of Navratri. Remember, this time of the calendar is usually packed with festivals coming one after the other. Ganesh Chaturthi, for instance, just got over. Navratri is coming up, so is Dussehra, Durga Puja, Diwali, and it goes all the way up to Christmas and New Year. This is also the time where people go out and buy new goods and services. The government's rationale is to capitalize on this and boost spending. So, lower tax rates means more money in the hands of the people, and essentially then this gets them to shop and spend more, since the prices of commodities will also come down, and then this will keep the demand cycle going. But why is the government going for these reforms now? A, to give a boost to the Indian economy as a whole, and B, it is being seen as a measure to tackle the tariffs that Donald Trump has imposed on us. The American president had he has slapped a 50% tariff on India, including a 25% penalty for buying Russian oil. This reform is being seen in that light. When the finance minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, was asked about it, here's what she had to say.
The tariff turmoil is not a matter which influenced the GST reform, because we've been at it now for more than 1.5 years. Some group of ministers was working on rate rationalization. Some other group of ministers a bit later was working on insurance, and so on. And compensation cess was a reality, that it is going to end the moment you paid back the loan. None of this has anything to do with the tariffs. So, no, there's nothing to do with the tariffs at all.
Now, while these reforms aim to ensure more money goes into the hands of the people, for the government, it's the opposite. The implication of this reform would cost governments 48,000 crore rupees this year. The government says this should not be called or named as a loss. Rather, it's an implication of the reforms that will be covered up subsequently as the demand goes up and people spend more to buy goods. But be that as it may, that's the hit that the government's treasury is expected to take this year. Meanwhile, India's stock market also opened up with a positive sentiment as far as these GST reforms were concerned. Today, the BSE Sensex, that has top 30 companies, jumped 888 points in the opening trade, while the 50-share NSE Nifty index surged 265 points. However, at closing, Sensex fell 700 points from the day's high and Nifty ended below 24,850. Lastly, let's look at it from a political angle. Ever since GST was rolled out, critics pointed out as to how it had visible flaws in it. The implementation had visible flaws. These included compliance issues, penalties, confusing rules, and multiple slabs. For instance, small businesses and startups have to pay GST even if their earnings are not very high. That makes it like a big burden for them. If they don't pay or break a rule by a small mistake, there are hefty fines and penalties for them. In fact, Congress MP and Lok Sabha LOP Rahul Gandhi had referred to GST as the Gabbar Singh tax, that this tax was designed to not simplify, rather loot people and destroy businesses. In the last 7 to 8 years, Rahul Gandhi and the Congress at large have spoken about simplifying the GST, reducing the number of tax slabs so that it is easy to comply with and not a burden on the common man. Today, the Modi government seems to have done just that. Congress supporters would now say that this is all thanks to Rahul Gandhi. But the fact is, 7 years later, the government has finally listened and decided to take some drastic steps. Today, in fact, the Congress party welcomed the decision of the Modi government and said that they have woken up from their slumber. That is, the Modi government has woken up from its slumber. In fact, former Union Minister P. Chidambaram also speculated on what could have triggered these reforms now. One of the aspects in his list of conjectures was that of the upcoming Bihar elections. The state is going to polls later this year, and the ruling BJP is gearing up for it. Politically, it is seen as a move to set the narrative in favor of the Modi government, that here was the government bringing out these big bang reforms to help the common man. After all, such a decision cannot only make for good economics, but also good politics and good optics. That's all we have for this report. Thanks for watching.